think you can fall into this, oh, if I just have this checklist and a person kind of fits all those things, then that means they're the one, right? We don't just kind of make the checklist a way of determining that without actually praying and being like, hey, God, is this person the one you want me to be with? Because there might be a couple people that could fit that checklist.
Hey everyone, welcome on to TheWalk podcast. This is a place where we can answer honest questions, talk about hard issues, and walk alongside one another as we explore how spirituality fits into real life. I'm your host, Gil Shelsby. Today, we're jumping into some relationship questions, all about how can you tell if the person you're dating is the one? We're welcoming back our panel featuring my wife, Gil Shelsby, and our friends, Zach and Hillary McClellan. Then we'll get to hear from Quentin and Daniella, an engaged couple, as they share insights they've learned from navigating this season of life. You know, there can be so much pressure to figure out whether the person you are with is the one or someone you'll spend the rest of your life with. Our hope is that this conversation brings a little bit of clarity, some peace, and hopefully some wise guidance for those who are in that stage of their relationship. So let's jump right into our episode. I'm sitting here with Zachary McClellan. Some of you guys know him. He is the Director of Development at the Epicenter. We're grateful to have you on, Zach.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Excited to be here. Go Vols.
Go Vols. That's right. And Hillary McClellan is here, who is married to Zach and is part of our equipping team, pastor here at Mountain. Hillary, welcome on.
Thanks, Gil.
And Ellie, how you doing?
Hey.
Ellie is my wife, if you don't know. It's kind of fun that we get to do this together. Ellie works with our worship team here at Mountain, so you've probably seen her around. We'll recognize her. We're talking on the topic of, like, how do I know if they're the one? Or, you know, trying to figure out if the person is right for you long term, talking marriage, engagement, those sorts of things. Kind of a fun question to get started. What is maybe a food preference that your partner has that you don't share? That's often the biggest place of disagreement.
Good. I love salad. Oh, I love a fresh green
I was not expecting
salad.
That's so California of you.
Oh, yes. Put my rainbows on, have a nice little salad on the beach, wave at the waves, and say God is good, right? I love a salad. Give me a fresh green salad from a farm or from whatever place with a little bit of chicken or steak in there and balsamic vinaigrette. Praise the Lord for that. Hillary does not like that if you don't know.
Yeah, well, because she's a normal person, Zach.
Anytime Zach's like, let's have salad for dinner, I'm like, okay, on the side of what? Salads are on the side. Actually, I want everything on the salad except the lettuce, please. So I think the difference there is I like warm food. I want my food cooked and hot and steaming and warm and comforty, especially when it's cold. The last thing I want is like cold lettuce. I remember early in our marriage, I was making pizza Fridays. We did homemade pizza. It was so fun. And finally, Zach was like, Hillary, I don't like pizza as much as you do. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm sorry.
It took me 6 weeks to say that. So
it's like, I don't like pizza as much as you do. This was recently. This was this year so far. It was like the first cold day in September. I was like, I'm making chili. And he was like, can we wait on the soups and stuff till like January?
Yes.
And I could eat soup every day, all day, no matter what time of year. I want warm food. Zach likes raw, cold food.
All right, Ellie, you're up. I'm excited to hear what you might say about this.
I like to go the easy route when I'm cooking dinner, like a sheet pan dinner, put veggies, stuff in the oven, fine. You don't really like that. You like to go a little fancier.
I like making pasta. Like if it's like, I don't know what I want, like I'm going to make some pasta.
Yeah.
So I might overdo it on the pasta.
Gourmet, and I'm like easy button all the way.
Yeah. Relationships are funny because almost all of our like we can't figure this out moments are around food. It's like, what are we going to have for dinner is like the biggest topic of conversation. Probably. I'm going to pass it to Ellie and I'll join in. We're going to tell a little bit of our story of how we started dating and got married and all of those things real briefly.
Well, we met in college, so it was freshman year, and we both went to the same church. So we had like a college community group, and we both did worship. And so someone invited us to just like help lead acoustic worship for our community group. So we were put in a group message. I didn't know anyone. Gil, you knew some of the guys in that group message, but we ended up meeting in like the plaza area of our like college campus. We were like, oh my gosh, you're in the same group message. And then that's kind of how we got to know each other.
Were you the vocalist, Gil, and Ellie was the guitar player?
No,
or-
Ellie obviously was the vocalist.
Oh, really? Yeah.
If
know
I
that.
was the one singing, we probably wouldn't be together today.
That's why I wanted to ask that question.
This is the backup guy. Yeah, so we did music stuff for a long time. We were friends for a really long time.
We were friends for a few months.
Yeah. And then I guess maybe that summer we had started dating. I took Ellie on an unofficial date on her birthday on April 25th
Yes.
to
So-
get milkshakes.
Oh,
Yes. All
Oh.
of our friends knew that we liked each other, but we
Uh-huh.
hadn't said anything. to each other.
Communication. It's
Classic.
the best.
But it was like really sweet. We would just like hang
Yeah.
out and everyone kind of knew, but it was fun. And so I had told all of our friends my favorite like milkshake ever was from The Loop. It's this place in Jacksonville. And I found out that there was one like 30 minutes away from where we went to college.
Cool.
And I just like kept on like kind of like pushing, hey,
Dropping hints.
I like this milkshake place. My birthday's coming up. Like, you
Wink, wink.
you should take me.
Now,
and I
were you-
picked up on it.
I have a clarifying question. Were you doing this like via like just speaking to him or like through
Yes.
social media? Okay, cool.
Well, we didn't really text or anything. So it was kind of nice. Like, we didn't even really text each other that much. We were just around each other a lot.
The big move was like take Ellie to get this milkshake that she really loves on
Sure.
her birthday. And I mean, it's pretty far. It's like 35,
It was-
40
yeah.
minutes away. And it just wasn't there. The place was not there. So
We pulled up and it was like,
it was not there.
it was
So
closed.
we went to like Shake Shack or something.
No, we went to like some random place.
Yeah, and got a milkshake. So
But it was
anyway,
like so disappointing. We like drove all the way
Yeah.
there and then it
anyway,
Oh,
it was
that
all
is
uphill
sad.
from there.
There you go.
So,
That's right.
yeah.
If you
But
start
at the-
there,
The
you're good.
disappointment.
Yes. At the end of the night though, you did tell me that you liked me.
I did. That was it was a big moment.
It was a
so,
big moment.
despite the milkshake.
Yeah, that was good communication. I feel like you
go.
were direct.
Take
Yeah.
notes.
That's good.
Well, great. We are talking about, how do I know if they're the one? I think there's a lot of people who are in this season where they're in a dating relationship.
Mhm.
Maybe they have been for a long time, maybe a couple years, maybe not that long. And I think there's always this mentality of you're figuring out together what's next. Like, do we want to go long term with this? Start talking about thinking about marriage. The question is this, like best practices for preparing for whether it's engagement or marriage, thinking more long term. What would you say if you had to give some advice?
Yeah, I think the biggest question around the one idea is, can you answer the question of putting your partner above yourself? Previously, Hillary and I were speaking in a different segment about how we dated for 4.5 years, right? And it's like, wow, that's a long time, right? It could be longer, it could have been way shorter, but I was convincing myself that I had to be secure, comfortable. I had to have my finances in check. I had to be finished with school. I had to have my master's degree before I could, quote unquote, be with Hillary, right? And that was a really strong pull for me, where it was pulling me away from really what was in front of me, which was this beautiful person who was ready to take a next step with me,
Mm-hmm.
because I was so distracted by this idea of being safe and secure. And so the core principle behind it is, can you finally say to yourself, I can lay myself down for what the needs are for this person? And if you're a faith, if you got a faith, obviously Christ goes first, and that's the foundation. If you don't have a faith, it still doesn't matter. It's still about putting that person in front and saying, my needs, my circumstances, what I need, what's going on with me goes second to compared to my partner, right? And if you're ready to say that and answer that question, I think a next step is definitely right around the corner for you. And so that would be kind of how I'd answer the one question. I think premarital counseling is a massive, massive thing. You've got to be able to put yourself in community with people that can speak into you about those core issues, you know, intimacy, money, communication, like we were talking about, indecisiveness, LOL. But like all of those things, you know, you've got to be around people that have done it and can really pour into you that way. And then the last thing I would say was you got to have people in stages of life that are ahead of you just by a little bit, right?
That's good.
You've got to have a couple that's probably 2 or 3 years ahead of you that's maybe going to get married around the corner or has just been married for a year that you trust, that you can talk to. And it doesn't need to be, you know, you as a couple going to a couple. It could be, you know, you guys could split up and the guy talks to the guy, the girl talks to the girl, or vice versa, or whatever, right? But do it together in a setting where there's community involved and fellowship involved. So that's kind of how I'd answer that one. Can you answer that question? Can you put Ellie in front of you? Can I put Hillary in front of me? And do her needs matter more than my needs? And I was ready to say that. Yeah, absolutely. And then we've been married for 7 years. And
I love that.
Now I will say, it's not a binary. It's not like a yes, you do it, and then it's over. Oh, no. Every day
Continual
you have
thing,
to get up and do it. And that's one of the biggest things that I struggle with is I want to be comforter. I want to be that rock for her, but I can't do that, right? That's Christ, because we have a faith in our relationship. But I got to continue to ask myself every day, okay, what's next for Hillary? What's next for Hillary? How can I keep empowering her, pushing her forward, and committing myself to her?
Yeah, I love that. I love the way that flips the way most people think about
Yes.
commitment. It's like often, do they meet my list of expectations or do I have everything figured out? And I love what you just said because it's the exact opposite. It's like, can I give myself to this person in a loving commitment? It's all about self-giving
And
love,
if
which
you
is
can
cool.
answer that, you're all in.
Yeah.
I think it's time. So congratulations to you if you're in that scenario. Just kidding. But yes, that's a big step. That's hard because everything in our world tells us to do the opposite. Where's the fix? Where's the, you know, your relationship, this relationship is matching a specific puzzle piece that I need in my life. And that's just not the case. That's not going to survive in this really difficult world, right? You got to be giving of yourselves to each other.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hillary, do you have any thoughts picking up on Zach?
Yeah. Thanks. That's beautiful, babe.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
No, yeah. You would hope if you've gotten this far in a dating relationship that you both have the same view of marriage. And if you hadn't had that conversation, you would start there.
Right now.
You would start there. And if you are both on a journey of following Jesus, then you would have some conclusions that the sacrament of marriage is a holy thing. If anything, our culture and our world are special, you know, Western ideas like marriage, it's like, there's not a lot of value put into it. But really what we see from a perspective of faith and as a Jesus community, just the covenant relationship that is. And so I would say, like, make sure you're on the same page of what you both, how you view marriage, like, because that matters. At the same time, if there's already tension points or problems or things you're struggling with, marriage doesn't make those easier. It's going to make them bigger. And so deal with like your stuff. Even in one of our premarital counseling things, one of the things came up that was so good for us to start tackling before we got married was just, I have a tendency, like if something was wrong, the first person I call is like my mom. How do I fix this? Like what's the solution? I need some help. Or how do you do this? You know? And, you know, after dating for 4 years, you're like, Hillary, like I can be that person for you. I want you to call me first. And that was like a light bulb moment for me. It sounds so simple now, but there's probably a whole lot into that. Like, you know, trying to please a parent and whatnot or whatever. So like letting go of some things to turn to the other person, be like, oh yeah, we're in this together. Like you said, putting you first and self-sacrificing for the others, really important. And so if there's tension points or if there's like conflict or if there's just unresolved stuff in you or the other person, if you're like, oh, that's a little bit of a yellow flag, but marriage will make it all better. It's like, no,
Nope.
that is dumb. That is not wise. Like marriage is just going to magnify that.
Yeah.
So I would say deal with those things on the front end, which can be really hard and really scary, but That's what I would
Yeah,
say.
hard work. Yeah, I love that. Marriage is a magnifying glass for all of whatever you're bringing in. Like who you are is who you will be, your habits and all those things.
I was thinking about, like, I was putting myself in the shoes of Ellie right before we got engaged. And I remember just the season that we were in and, like, discerning everything. And, like, as we talk about engagement and marriage, like, there was something in me that I feel like I needed to work out before we got married. I remember we had a conversation because I was watching, especially on social media, like, I was watching so many girls get engaged, girls getting married, all these things, the ring, all this stuff. And in me started idolizing the engagement season and the marriage season. And, like, instead of just, like, the marriage and, like, what life with Gil would be like. And I remember Gil kind of calling me out. We had, like, a conversation. Gil was like, I feel
Conversation is a really nice way of putting it.
we had been dating for over 4 years, and I was like, why isn't this happening? I'm frustrated. I feel like this is the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And Gil was like, you're just mad at me because we're not engaged. Like, you need to, like, work this out. And I remember being like, oh, that really hurt my feelings. I was like, well, my priorities, like, to be married and to be engaged are, like, my priority needs to be Jesus first. And, like, I need to focus on him before I even go into this season of, like, engagement with Gil. So I feel like the priority in your head, like, you should just be striving after Jesus first. Yeah, because I think about that conversation. I was so frustrated because I was like, well, why not? Like, why don't you want to spend the rest of your life with me? And he was like, it's not about that. Like,
Yeah, well, there's something about that time of, like, when you're starting to think towards marriage that brings up a lot of those conversations that are really, really hard, and they expose a lot of different parts of both of you. That's, like, where almost all of our growth happened, was that and being engaged, just, like, the growth process of figuring out what are our motives, like, all of that stuff was kind of revealed. So as hard as that was, I think that's, like, it's kind of where the gold is when you start having those conversations. So another thing I heard too was just get other people involved, Zach, which I want to reiterate again, just, like, pull in as many people as you can who are just maybe a step down the road or a little wiser, a little older, all those things. So build a team around you as you discern it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to challenge yourself and pick people that you might not put yourself around. I know particularly for me, I did youth ministry in East Tennessee, and the youth minister at the time his name was Andrew Church, and he was a little different from me. And so we challenged each other, and he helped me, like, discern, like, it's different. Hillary's obviously from Savannah. She's got kind of the Southern vibe behind her, and he helped me, like, discern this is the way our people think. This is the way the culture is shaped down here. And doesn't mean you need to shape yourself to it, but you do need to know you're stepping into a relationship that has that premise behind it, right? Whether Hillary recognizes it or not. So yeah, you want to put those people around you.
Have hard conversations, build a team around you. It's good stuff.
Good, man.
Thank you guys again.
Of course, Gil. Thank you, guys.
I'm really excited that I am sitting here with a couple of my really good friends. Quentin Stevenson is here. He's the content producer for the Epicenter. So if you're around the Mountain or Epicenter community, you guys might recognize Q. You go by Q.
Yeah, for the most part.
That's probably helpful to say out of the
Q
gate.
is good. I like being called Q.
Because I'm going to introduce you as Quentin and then call you Q. He does it all. He's multi-talented. So you've probably seen him all around our community. And the same is true for Daniella. How are you?
I'm good.
It's good to have you on. Daniella is the director of communications also at the Epicenter. So you guys work together.
Yeah, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And yeah, that's cool. Thank you guys again for being willing to jump in on this topic. I'll let you share a little bit more about your story in a moment, but you are engaged to be married, which is awesome. And this is a really fun question for you. I'm excited to hear your answers, okay? So here it is. What is one thing that belongs to your significant other that you would love for them to get rid of?
This is going to start some
It can be an
fights.
object, a physical object, whatever.
I think for me, Daniella has a very, very deep and abundant love for coffee,
That's true.
but she has an overabundance of coffee mugs. And,
Sure.
you know, I'm learning to appreciate that. But when we go to like IKEA or we go to like Target, she points out those little cute chubby mugs. I'm like, we have like, 87 of those. So I don't think I think we can get rid of a couple, you know?
No, never.
I think we can get rid of some.
Yeah, we always need more.
I'm totally getting you guys like a
For-
Mr. and Mrs. mug.
Oh man, I feel like we're gonna get like 16 of those.
Endless coffee mugs. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, Daniella, you're up.
All right, so I was thinking a non-object, actually. I mean, he loves to climb, so he's got tons of climbing stuff. He's got these funky glasses that reflect his eyes upward. It's real creepy.
What? For climbing?
For climbing. So if you're holding the rope for the person going up, it like helps your neck so you don't have to look up the whole time. So it literally like it's this mirror effect, but it changes the way his eyes looks and it's real creepy. So
You
they're a little
would
funky.
rather me have have terrible neck health as opposed to looking cool.
Do you want him to be more unsafe on the rock
No,
climbing wall?
no.
Exactly.
I know.
It's for
I
the
was
other
torn
person's
on that
safety.
one. My other one would have been his ability to go without food. So he could go like almost the whole day without eating, which is impressive. But for someone who loves eating all the time, like me, there's times where I'm like, wait, come on.
Yeah.
We got to go get
You're
some
ready to
food.
eat, and he's
But-
like indifferent about it.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
just
That's the worst.
fasting, you know.
You're just so extra spiritual.
I'm just really spiritual. I'm just fasting.
You're always
so-
fasting. Oh my goodness.
No.
That's fun. Well, so like share a little bit about your story, how you met, your dating relationship, what kind of led you to where you guys are now.
So we met, I remember the day, it was March 4th, 2019. I remember that because it was my first time coming to the Young Adults Ministry at Mountain. And fun fact is that Daniella is actually the first person I talked to when I came to the gathering. Because I sat off in the corner of the room. I didn't want to talk to anybody. But then, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody there, but I felt like a pull to be there. And over walks this like girl with like a sweet smile and beautiful eyes. And she sat next to me. And then she starts talking to me about like driving stick shift because she just bought a new car. So, she was just like, oh, like, hey, my name's Daniella. Are you new here? I'm like, yeah, I'm new here. So she's like, all right.
I wasn't trying to make a move. I was on the welcome
she was
team.
not. She was not.
So I was like,
She was
oh,
not.
this
You
guy
were
is
trained to
new.
be friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was trained to be friendly. So they beat her like, you gotta be friendly. And I was like, why is she being so nice? I was like, why is she being so nice? But she was able to, and she introduced me to like a lot of awesome guys who really have been impactful in my faith. And she became a good friend of mine as well. And because she's on the welcome ministry or the welcome team, she definitely like friend zoned me for the first like year of our relationship. But by the grace of God, he delivered me from that place. So guys, it is possible. But seriously, we were friends first. We were friends for about a year. And yeah, we just kind of saw each other at like Young Adults Ministry. Our friends would have a get together and we'd hang out there. And then a little thing called the stay-at-home order during April of 2020.
yes.
Yeah, COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
Good for all of our relationships.
It's
COVID
good.
was.
We're an officially a COVID couple. Her and I and a couple other friends of ours started doing a virtual daily Bible study. We met on this app called House Party. So shout out House Party. And we just kind of go through these Bible plans on YouVersion. And the group not only helped me grow closer in my like relationship with God, and I learned so much and kind of grew my faith a lot during that time. But like it also helped me get pretty close to Danielle as well, So it was kind of like a win-win. So yeah, we got to pray over one another, walk through a hard season together. And it really gave me a chance to see how truly authentic Daniella's faith was. And seeing her character up close and personal like that really showed me what kind of person and what kind of woman she was. Yeah, a lot of good things in between. So
Yeah. I remember him just being a great friend and we had a lot of interests in common. But at one point I was with my friend and I was like, I feel like we're texting more often, we're talking more often, and I really want to keep the conversations going and keep getting to know him. But I feel like we're on that verge of, okay, that would be like the line of more than friends if I'm spending that much time into this. And I was like, but it feels like the right thing. And she knew for me that was, just something like, okay, lean into that and see what this happens. And then, we started dating, and our whole relationship kind of has been slow in some ways, but super sweet just in the ways that we've been able to get to know one another And we said from the beginning, like, even though we were moving slow, it was for the sake of marriage, that we didn't want to just date to date. We weren't kind of just like testing something out. We were really trying to see if marriage would be like our future step. And so I'm grateful for that too.
Being friends for a long time and having the friendship that you had, how did that like set you up maybe for success or like throughout your relationship? Did you find that that was really helpful, just having the background of knowing someone for a long time?
Yeah, it made me so much more comfortable. I felt very safe just talking to him, and I could be goofy because we were friends, and it just let me, it kind of took down those, oh, I have to pretend to be somebody for this person, because he had already seen a lot of my quirkiness. And so, yeah, that was really beneficial in just kind of seeing the true sides of ourselves and kind of building that rather than that, like, just based on attraction or kind of setting it up in that different way.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, because that was the thing of having that base of a really strong friendship first. I got to see her walk through some really hard seasons and really see her faith tested time and time again. And seeing how she walked through that and being able to walk alongside her through that and like as just a friend, I got to see a lot more of that authenticity as opposed to like what Danielle said, just like the surface level. Oh, like she's really pretty and really sweet. I got to see another side of her that was going beneath the surface and building that close friendship. I got to see more of who she was and the ways that God was working in her life. I got to hear things that she wanted prayer about. I got to hear things that she was struggling with that really, for me, was like, oh, wow, she's really serious about her faith. It's permeating every part of her life. And this is something that she's really, really serious about. And that was a huge blessing to have that base of friendship, because when we were having those conversations before we even labeled ourselves boyfriend and girlfriend, we could have those conversations and say, hey, we have like a DTR, define the relationship conversation, and feel like she said comfortable and feel safe in that conversation because we know each other very, very well. And that helped with those conversations, I think.
A certain level of trust and stuff that you had already built up. So you would recommend that maybe to others thinking about dating, that sort of thing?
If possible, yeah. Sometimes it's hard, but
yeah, of course.
I think it's a good way, yeah, like Quentin was saying, to see their character and to build that trust.
One of the things I hear often is in every movie, show, I feel like all the dating shows too, especially, it's like, okay, how do I know if they are the one? Really hyped up thing. How, in your experience, have you come across the idea of the one? What would you say?
I think in the sense that most people think about it, it kind of is more of like a dream of finding their one. And there's expectation that when they find that one person, that relationship is going to be so much easier and that life is going to be fuller and that there's going to be this like grand, like, oh, we live in this like utopian society. Like, oh my goodness, it's all perfect, you know? Like
you complete me.
Oh my goodness, yeah, the "you complete me" phrase. I'm like, oh no. And when they find their other half, that's gonna be all like this perfect utopia. But I don't think it's the case. So for me, I don't necessarily subscribe to the belief of having the one in the sense of just there's a person that completes you out there.
Yeah, I agree too. I think there's a desire for not only perfection, but kind of this guarantee, wanting to find that person that's gonna make life great and that's gonna be there forever and kind of not even have to think about, is this like a questionable thing or anything? So I think, yeah, there's an ease that is, I guess, desirable in there being a one, but I think God's created something different in marriage and what it looks like to find the one to marry. Yeah, that looks a little bit different.
Okay, so for people listening right now who maybe they're dating someone right now and they're unsure about, like, is this the right person for me? Or they're even not even dating yet. They're just looking for like you just said, the perfect person to be with. For people in that world, how do you know someone's like the right person to spend your life with? How do you know if someone is the right person?
I think kind of going back a little bit on, is there the one? Those things that we're looking for in a person, if they were the one, Christ is the only one that can actually satisfy all those things. And so, as cheesy as that sounds, if there was a one, it's him, and it's not the person that we would potentially marry. And so satisfying that first kind of helps you know then what to look for in other people. I think there's two main things that I think are really important in making that decision. There's so many great podcasts out there that kind of go through some of this content. Ben Stewart has an awesome series on this. And I remember, listening to a ton of stuff. There's kind of these checklists you can look for. You know, is there an attraction? Do they have great communication? Most importantly, do they have a relationship with God? And the piece I would add to that, because I think you can fall into this, if I just have this checklist and a person kind of fits all those things, then that means they're the one, right? Or what I would add to that is making sure you're in conversation with God throughout the whole thing. That we don't just kind of make the checklist a way of determining that without actually praying and being like, hey, God, is this person the one you want me to be with? Because there might be a couple people that could fit that checklist. There's some really great Christian guys that I could have been like, yeah, they're pretty solid. But either the timing wouldn't be right, our maturity wouldn't be right. You know, different things would go in there that I think prayerful discernment would show. And so I think just being very willing to continuously ask the Lord for guidance in that is really important. And he will speak. It's not that audible voice that's like, yes, he is the one.
Yeah.
Wait,
That
you
would
didn't
be
hear that?
Wait a second.
You didn't hear that when you saw me for the first
Hold
time? Wait a second.
I was my understanding that Q walked into that young adult gathering and said, God, show me a sign right now.
Yeah, that's...
And he audibly just like showed you Daniella.
Yeah,
A beacon of
pretty
light
much. A
appeared.
beacon of light shone down on her face.
That's not often how it works. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's something I tried to be mindful of in our relationship from the beginning, is just continuously asking God. And then as we were dating, it was, okay, Lord, this is getting more and more serious. I love this. Quentin's a great guy. This is seeming really good, but constantly asking him to show. And I remember one conversation as we were getting close to considering engagement, we were like, all right, we're going to talk through some like big stuff in this conversation and like really, really see if this is the next step. And the night before I was a little nervous and I was just like, all right, Lord, this is your time. Like if you want to, if there's a red flag, show it and make that evident. But if this is the right thing, grant me peace in it. And even though I was nervous before the conversation, throughout the whole thing, I just felt peace in the way that Quentin handled the questions, responded to the questions. It was really great. So little things like that. I think just listening for God's guidance is really important. And then the second thing, if you want to spend your life with this person, is do they make your kingdom work stronger? Are you able to serve the kingdom better with them? I think sometimes marriage can seem like it's just about the two of you. And so, yeah, it's great. Like marriage is a gift and it's definitely something to enjoy. You get to be with this person and have a companion in your life. But if it's not going outside the two of you, that might be a sign that either you can change some things with the person that you're with, or there's maybe someone that could compel you to just really be in line with the kingdom a little bit differently. And so like, are you serving together? Or is that person challenging you to grow, to change, to be more Christ-like? It's great if you're kind of in sync on a lot of things, but are they able to shape you and change you a little bit more in some ways? Do they encourage you to grow with Christ and to go outside of just the two of you to bless other people in your life too?
That's cool. I love that. It's like kind of a countercultural thing in some ways. We think of this question as, I have a list of expectations or red flags or whatever it might be, and if the person doesn't live up to them, like that's how I know. I love that you're describing something that's so much more like living and active, and it's like if I could draw a picture of it, it'd be like a triangle between the two of you and God as an active participant kind of in the middle of it, continually going back to seek him for guidance. That's really cool. So what I'm hearing is guidance from God and kingdom work. I think you guys embody that too a lot in a lot of ways, by the way. I mean, you guys are actively, obviously you work together, you've served together throughout young adults and college age and all that stuff. And so it's cool to see even you guys live that out, even before you take the step of marriage that will serve you well. So, all right, Q, you're up.
All right.
Anything else to add?
Yeah, I echo a lot of her sentiments too. And just Christ is ultimately the one you should be pursuing. You're not perfect, but Christ is, and he's going to help us love one another going forward. So that's the first thing is like, yeah, Christ is the one. And then you can look at that person and go, okay, you're not perfect, but I can love you through Christ. I've been asked by some guys like, okay, like, how'd you know like you want to propose to her? How'd you know like this, you want to see some engagement? I kind of just had 3 questions that kind of had to run through my mind and like genuinely answer and be authentic with and go, okay, God, reveal anything in my heart that these answers, if there's a no, reveal that. And the first one is, since you and your significant other started dating, has their character and their faith remained consistent? One of the things that attracted me to Danielle the most was the fact that her faith and character showed that she was a woman of God who put God first. She followed through with what she said she would do, and she always remained consistent no matter who she's with. I watched her walk into a room of young adults and be who God called her to be. And I watched her hang out with friends who are outside the church and still be a light representing Christ in that. And I've been on dates with her, and she's the same exact person she is in all of those circumstances, all those environments. And that is something that, as we've dated the last 3 years, she's stayed consistent. Like, she's constantly stayed consistent in her character and her faith. There's never been a time where I'm like, oh, when we first started dating, you were a lot more prayerful about things, but now you've stopped praying a good bit. Like, what okay, so you're just putting on a show at this point. No, she's been super consistent in her faith and in her character. If she's in a room where people are gossiping, she's not going to join the gossip. And that's something that is very easy to do when you first start dating, but it's hard to do a year into it, 2 years into it, 5 years into it, 10 years into it. So first question was, how's her faith and character remain consistent? And when I looked at that, I was like, oh yeah, it definitely has. And the second was, are you and the person you're with still actively pursuing a holistic version of growth in Jesus? And when I say that, I mean, like, it's very easy to go like, oh, like, I'm growing in Christ spiritually, and be like, oh, I'm reading my Bible daily. I'm like doing devotional, and I'm going to church, and that's all awesome. And you should definitely still do that. And the person you're with also should be doing that. I think they should also be pursuing that spiritual growth, but a holistic view of that is that Christ permeates all aspects of your life. So that means that you're growing spiritually. It means you're also emotionally maturing. It means you're learning to discern wisdom from foolishness. It means that you're going to be financially wise. It means that you're not going to make irresponsible decisions, that you understand that, oh, the money I get is God's money first, and then I'm going to steward that responsibly. And it means a pursuit of like physical health. It means you understand your body as a temple, and also pursuing purity in that as well, and maintaining physical boundaries as well as emotional and spiritual boundaries as well. So when I say, are you pursuing active like growth in Christ, it's a holistic version of that. It's like, oh yeah, Christ is in all aspects of that. And also looking across the person and going, okay, like, she's also pursuing that too, or he's also pursuing that too. And you see that growth, you see that maturity, you see that wisdom that comes from Christ.
You're saying there's a whole lot more involved in how that's lived out practically.
Yeah, there's a lot of like this practical things that Christ can be a part of that.
That's good.
I think it's just so important for, if you're gonna spend you're making a decision to spend the rest of your life with this person, that Christ should be at the center of all of that. Should be the center of all of those things. And then the last question really is just, would a marriage help or hinder both of our walks with Jesus? Because that one's like, it's a really hard question to ask if you aren't like 100% with, 100% real with the last two questions. Like, if you are kind of walking with Christ, but you're like, it's not like super authentic, then entering into a marriage is going to make it a lot harder, because it's going to expose a lot more things, it's going to expose a lot more of those like faults and impurities. If the character hasn't remained consistent, if their character is changing, if you are walking to certain rooms and acting a certain way, or you walk outside these walls and you're a different person, then I think that's when you kind of have to look at that relationship as a whole and go, okay, would a marriage at this point actually help, or would it hinder our walk with Christ? Because ultimately, I had heard it said one time on a podcast, is that the time to get married is when you realize you can serve God better together as opposed to being apart.
That's good.
So just like Daniella said, is that we're called to like honor Christ and honor God in all that we do. And marriage is that unification of that pursuit of Jesus with another person. And so, I mean, there are times where, like, if we go, oh, like, the path I'm being called down feels like it's going one way, and their path might be going down another way, there has to be some sort of like, okay, we have to submit our own desires, our own will to God. or start having a conversation that maybe what God's calling us to do is going to draw us apart from that, and maybe a marriage wouldn't help that. And so I think if you can answer yes to all those questions, like very honestly, then I'm like, dude, put a ring on it. You know, like, what are you doing, man? I'm like, dude, if you're gonna answer yes to all those questions, I think it might be a wise decision to get married. But if you answer yes to all those, but there still isn't like a level of peace to it, then I think there might be a sign. That might be a sign that maybe there is something that God's trying to reveal to you that means that one of those questions.
Sure. I mean, it goes back to what Daniella said, which is like, you ask those questions, you answer them together, and then you continually go back to God for guidance.
Right, yeah. And I think even if you could say yes to all those questions, you're still going to find some hardships in your relationship, and that doesn't mean the relationship's bad. So I wouldn't want somebody to be like, you know, oh, I have to stop because we keep getting into arguments. Well, arguments are good, and we actually need them to grow in our relationship. So that's not necessarily the problem. It's, you know, how do you handle those arguments? Are you able to like still lift one another up in the midst of those discussions? When we say that you feel like a peace in that relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an easy one. And I think that's sometimes hard to hear too in like trying to find the right person. So it can be challenging, but it's the kind of challenge that grows you rather than brings you down.
For you guys, you've been together for a while. Do you find that a lot of your growth has happened through conversations like
For
that?
sure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's been some seasons where it's conversations that you kind of want to shy away from. Like we both are like, we don't want to talk about this. And just our personalities tend to be that way anyway. And so, but yeah, every time we come like together and talk about it, sometimes it takes a little bit to get through it, and it doesn't feel great at the moment. But afterwards, yeah, we definitely understand one another better. We feel like we have clarity in what we're trying to do. And again, it builds that trust for sure that we can go through something harder because we've been through some things already.
Yeah, it helps build trust in the person that you're going to be sitting next to for the rest of your life. Like, we've been through hard seasons like together that we've had to have some really, really hard conversations with like about like family and things that we've been through in our past, that I now have a greater trust in how she will walk through those alongside me, because we've already walked through some of those things together. And that is, I think, something that's super, super crucial. And just going forward in the relationship is that this person next to you is going to be your partner in crime for life. You know, they're going to be sitting with you through the hardships, going to be sitting with you through the highs and the lows and everything going forward. So having that trust that flows freely between really does make for a lot stronger of a relationship, you know, and that's only built through the trials, you know?
Yeah, that's good. Before we wrap up, you guys are engaged.
Yeah.
You're getting married.
Yeah.
It's happening. Awesome. You don't have to say the date. You don't have to say where it is. Okay,
We're actually sending an invite out to everyone listening to this podcast.
If
There's
you're
a promo
listening
code
right
on
now,
there.
consider it an invite, you guys.
Yes, it is an open invite. Everyone's welcome.
Not.
It's going to be February 30th next year. So be there.
In this very room.
In this very room.
See you there. Okay, so there's something unique about being engaged and preparing to be married. There's like a really beautiful side of it, and then also like a chaos that just descends on your life as you're planning and doing all that stuff. For people who are about to move into that kind of stage, or maybe they're in it now, what are some like best practices for preparing for just engagement and marriage and all of that stuff? What are you learning?
I think staying active is a big part. You kind of think that, oh, okay, we're kind of getting locked in and we're preparing for marriage. We just got to wait a couple more months.
Yeah, it's all chill, man. It's all good.
And so there's part of you that is just like, all right, let's just get through this point and we can stay where we're at. But I think there's a beautiful parallel that a friend of mine told me, that engagement to them was the closest parallel for them to waiting for Christ's coming. And because it's, you know, he's coming, right? We're so excited for that. But we as the church, his bride, are still supposed to be preparing for that and ready for it and looking forward to it and growing and sharing in the light with other people. And so in the same way, like we're ready and excited for marriage. We wish it could come sooner in a lot of ways. And so we're trying to stay patient in that. But in the meantime, we can still keep growing in who we are and how we treat one another. Like, I'm trying to prepare to be the best wife I can be. And really, I do need as much time on that as I can get before I head into it. So I think just being active in that season, to stay excited, but to stay patient. And then community around that is super important. Having people that can just pour into you and give guidance and wisdom before you head into marriage. And also cheer you on as you're trying to keep holding to purity too. Like that gets harder. So just to have those people around you to keep guiding you as you go is really important too.
Yeah. Like I'll tell people that being engaged, that's this season it has been harder than dating. There's a lot more stress that revolves around it. There's a lot, like, you're fighting a lot more attacks of purity. You're fighting a lot more of those battles. And it's kind of like, you're like, oh, I want marriage to be here sooner because we like want to travel and we want to buy an apartment together. We want to do these things that we're just like, oh, let's make it married right now. But it is a season of waiting. But the thing that I would say is that it's still a fun season, and to never lose sight of the fun that's there, because you're gonna be focused a lot on wedding planning. It's like people say it's stressful and it's very time consuming and it's very hard, but make time to still date one another. It's so important to have fun in this season, because it is a beautiful time, and it's a beautiful time to have some awesome conversation, to really get to further know this person, discover more things about them as you go into the season of marriage, or this next lifetime of marriage. And then also, just last thing is just serving together. Just keep serving together. I mean, that's I've heard it said that a successful marriage looks like constantly trying to outserve one another. That's good. And serving is a beautiful way to put that practice into habit and to continue to do that together. Yeah. And also, it can be a fun date idea. You guys
Super
could go serve and then go get ice cream afterwards. You know?
Yes. There you go. That's cool. I've noticed just like a thread throughout our conversation of what does a kingdom-oriented relationship look like, whether you are dating, engaged, married, or like single and just in a friendship or whatever. Like, are you serving God's kingdom together, or giving yourself to a purpose that's greater than the two of you, or whatever it might be? So it's cool to watch that come out of both of you as you have this conversation, and definitely in your own life. Okay, any other any other resources that have been helpful for you all? You mentioned Ben Stewart has a podcast. That's cool.
Yeah, he does a really great one through singleness, dating, marriage. And Mountain, if you guys are mountain goers, has a lot of great resources. Totally. Mountain has this really great resource, Courageous Conversations for Couples, or CCFC. And it can be for people if you're dating, engaged, or married. And it's a great class that you take for a couple weeks just to build you up. You go through different things, talking about going through conflict or with finances, going through family history, just a lot of really great stuff that you can grow together in.
Yeah, and another cool thing about that is that at the end of the class, you get a chance to take this test. It's pretty much just like a premarital counseling like test that gives you a lot more language to use around these conversations that if you're considering your engagement and you want to go forward in that, take that next step. It's really good for you to ask you questions about what your priorities are in a marriage, what marriage looks like to you, even things like how are you going to split up household chores?
Yeah.
Like who's going to do what? That was super, super awesome for us to walk through, because we could see, oh, wait, you want me to do all the dishes? Like, hold on, I thought we were going to like split that, or like I'll wash, you dry, or something like that. I don't know. But it gave some really good, like there's some fun examples like that, but even just like harder conversations it opened up a lot of good conversation through that. And just to give like a set a general expectation to assess what you expect marriage to look like and what they expect marriage to look like.
For sure. It was great. If you guys don't go to Mountain, if there's any type of marriage counseling or premarital counseling that you can refer to, that was really, really helpful, and just helping us discern, like, are we ready for this? It gets into some like really practical things of finances and your family history and the ways you guys deal with conflict. So those two were probably the most helpful, I think, leading up to this.
That's great.
One more thing, too, if I can add, I think being around great examples of what marriage looks like is huge. So I came from, my parents were divorced, and so I saw a very broken version of marriage. Neither of us have had necessarily great examples in our lives growing up. And honestly, the world we live in, that's becoming more and more rare to really see like a husband and wife truly loving one another well. And so being in a relationship, sometimes I don't realize how much it influences you, but when you see a lot of bad examples, it's hard to be a good one yourself. And so if you can kind of pair up with a couple that is in the church or someone that you love and trust, just to see how they do life together, that can be super encouraging. It can really, really shape you and the person that you're with too. So I think, just having those examples to lift you up is really great too.
Yeah, having those examples and older examples of what a godly marriage, what a Christ-centered marriage looks like, just super, super helpful, because when either Daniella or myself have questions, or we have just something we're trying to like walk through, and we're trying to walk through in relationship, it's helpful to have other people that are further along in that walk alongside you that can kind of help mentor and guide her as well as myself. Because there are times that I'm like, man, like I don't have an instruction manual on how to be a godly husband or a godly fiance or all these things. And if you look at just like scripture, you could be like a little overwhelmed. But when you have somebody who can walk through it with you and kind of
example,
guide you through that, it makes it run a lot smoother when you have that person that can come alongside you, the older person come alongside you and mentor you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so good advice. Build a community of people around you. Mountains, kind of like you mentioned, there's so many different resources to take advantage of, people who want to equip you well to do marriage and dating and engagement, all those things well and flourish in it. So grateful to be a part of a community that has lots of those good examples to look up to. You guys, this was awesome. This was
so
really fun. Thanks
Yeah.
for being willing to offer a little bit of a window into you all in the season you're in, and a lot of really good wisdom to come out of it. So
Yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, so much. Thanks
All right.
so much.
Huge thanks to Quentin and Daniella for joining us. These are really tricky topics to navigate, and they offered us so much wisdom. I love their encouragement of how can we invite God's guidance into the middle of our relationships as we discern the future together. Really, really helpful stuff. This podcast is a resource of Mountain Christian Church in Maryland, and our door is always open as you explore what you believe. So feel free to reach out and connect anytime. The best way for you to do that is through the email in the show notes. To find links to resources you heard about today, check out the show notes as well. And if you found this conversation helpful, please share it with a friend. Thanks for being here, and until next time, take care and know that we're walking alongside you.